Hi guys, Nigel Farage is very good at convincing people to vote against their own interests. He's good at spotting small boats in the English Channel and good at asking questions that may or may not lead to riots. Now, he appeared on the Laura Kuenssberg show where he was asked about something else, local government. And as you see here, if he's not on his specialist subject, he sort of falls apart. Have a listen.
A 19-year-old in your party is now the leader of Warwickshire Council in charge of a budget of £500 million. He wants to spend £190,000 on hiring political assistants. Is that a good use of taxpayers' money?
Well, at the moment, we're finding that we're very, very hamstrung. We're going into existing administrations. We're facing obstructionism in many places. And Warwickshire, a very, very good example. The CEO willfully defying what we want to do there. So, does this guy, George Finch, does he need some professional political figures around him? You bet your life he does. I mean, this is going to be
the massive grift of the century. Reform UK get into positions at local government and then create lots of jobs for their friends. Contracting roles, consultant roles. This is what it's all going to be about. Here we have an opportunity to make a lot of money. And obviously, who's going to be hired? Well, friends of this guy or people handpicked by Nigel Farage or people perhaps who have donated to Reform UK. This is all what it's about. It's not about improving the situation for people who are living in these councils. It's about grifting.
This is going to be a very big battle against the existing bureaucracies that exist in these councils who've been running bad practice for years.
So your answer is to take on more staff. You want to cut costs, but your answer in that particular case is to take on more staff and spend nearly another £200,000 of council taxpayers' money.
Better to have staff who support the will of the democratically elected councillors than it is to have public sector staff opposing you.
But you think that is then a model for what will happen in reform councils around the country? You'll take on more staff costing more?
I think Warwickshire is the worst example of obstructionism that we face. There are other councils.
So what he's doing is he's calling it obstructionism. He's saying, look, we're not allowed to do what we want. Yes, because there are certain things that the councils have to do. These are rules that come down from Westminster. You have to spend money on social care. Of course, Reform UK would like to avoid doing that because they want to funnel more money into the pockets of their friends and donors. They don't want to provide public services. They want to cut public services. This is a trial run for when they get into Westminster, when they get into real power.
Well, we're working reasonably well with existing administrations.
What do you actually mean by that? Obstructionism? What do you mean the chief executive refused?
Well, they don't want to show us the books. We ask, where's the money being spent? Can we see the credit card statements? And we find genuine, deliberate obstructionism.
Well, let's look at another council, Staffordshire. You're a team that's meant to go in and hunt for savings, sort of model on Elon Musk's Doge efficiency team. Staffordshire Council says they've received no request or notification of the audit. Essentially, your team that's meant to be looking for savings hasn't turned up yet, even though you won in May.
They haven't. No.
They haven't turned up.
No, there are 13 of them for us to go around. You'll find in West Northamptonshire, we've just saved £1 million renegotiating an IT contract. Just one little example of what we...
See, they will say it as a saving. We're saving money, but when they're either cutting public services or they're changing the IT contract and giving it to whom? This is what is important to follow. You need to follow the money. Where is this money going? Who won this contract? And why did they win this contract? Does the winner of this contract, the one who won the tender, are they connected to Nigel Farage in some way? Are they connected to Reform UK in some way? If they're not, that's wonderful. But if they are, then of course there are questions to be answered.
We can do. Bear in mind, we're not the Labour Party. We haven't got hundreds of staff. We're a party that's been really active for just over a year. We're growing in size. Yes, we have a Doge team. They've not been everywhere yet. But you've seen already, us highlighting examples of extravagant expenditure.
Well, you've seen already also in Warwickshire, we've just discussed somebody wanting £200,000 on extra staff because they don't have the ideas themselves.
Once he's got the right staff, we can make some real savings.
So you need to spend £200,000 on consultants, and then we'll be able to save money. Now, do people not? Does he think people can't see through this? You get your counsellor in, creates lots of jobs for friends and donors, and then where does the money go? It all disappears. This is exactly like what the Conservatives were doing, handing out PPE contracts to their friends and donors. Millions, hundreds of millions of pounds wasted. We're going to see exactly the same thing with reform. I can guarantee it.
We've also seen decisions like in Lincolnshire, for example, where the council's got rid of the floods committee, except there have been floods.
Yeah. Well, who says the flood committee would do any good?
The flood committee is there to make sure that there are protections and preventions in place for businesses and for citizens, for people living there. They're supposed to put in place a plan to, okay, what do we do in the case of a flood? What parts of the council have to work together? There's a flood committee in order to protect and prevent serious damage. And what does Farage do and Reform do? They get rid of it. It's exactly like what happened in the United States with Elon Musk and his Doge department. They sacked 300 people who were working on nuclear energy safety, and then realized, actually, we need these people, and they had to hire them back. These people should be nowhere near the levers of power.
I mean, there is this assumption that you appoint committees, you launch inquiries, you do all these things, and they actually lead to any results. And
is this because when you were supposed to be attending fishing committees in Brussels, when you were a member of the European Parliament, you didn't bother to turn up? Is it because it's not going to do anything, so I'm not even going to bother to turn up?
we saw no evidence of that in Lincolnshire at all.
So you saw no evidence that having a flood committee to try to protect the citizens of that county
I think
from floods.
I think you'll find that Dame Andrea Jenkins, who was the mayor of Greater Lincolnshire, thinks actually she'd be better off with some civil engineers rather than people placed on a committee who've got no knowledge of the subject at all.
Yes, but civil engineers provide evidence to the committee. The civil engineers will not be able to do all this work. They will be generally tasked, okay, give us some data on what we should do, give us some instruction on what we should do. Because the committee will look at all aspects, not just the engineering aspect of it. How will it impact homes? How will it impact businesses? That's not something that civil engineers will be looking at.
No knowledge of flooding.
Nowhere enough, not as much as professional civil engineers.
What about Scarborough Town Council, which has given
no idea.
Well, I can tell you.
No idea.
Well, I can tell you what's happened there, and
I have no idea. I don't care. You know, once he's asked a few difficult questions, you see he either falls apart or he gets a bit tetchy or he tries to laugh it off.
Can ask you whether you think this is the right thing to do. Scarborough Town Council has given its reform mayor a 600% pay rise.
I have no idea.
You don't know?
Whether what you say is true or not, I have no idea.
So is that the
plausible deniability? A 600% pay increase? I don't know anything about that. You're supposed to be running the entire show, Nigel. You said that you would be in charge, you would be handpicking people. You know, it's a top-down dictatorship, basically. So it's very strange that Nigel Farage doesn't know about this. He probably does know, but he doesn't want to answer the question. Because remember, Reform UK sold the public the idea that there's a massive amount of waste. They need to be voted into these councils, and they're going to get rid of all of this waste and save people hundreds of millions of pounds. But instead, what are we seeing? They're getting in. They're looking around saying, well, we could create lots of jobs for our friends and donors. Let's create some jobs. Let's bring in lots of consultants. Let's bring in people who could earn a few quid. And then we might as well earn an extra few quid as well. Let's boost up, because I have the ability to increase my wages. I'm going to do that. So you're going to be sold two different messages. One is that, well, we need to spend huge amounts of money, as he said here, to save money. And then on the other hand, well, don't worry, Doge is doing it for free. So don't worry, it's not going to cost the taxpayer or the council taxpayer any money. Something really dodgy is going on. And unfortunately, the more power Reform UK have, the more this will be swept under the carpet. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.